we're now ready for, like, the gun goes off and we have to actually tackle this course. So you received this. So I've run the race a few times, 3, I believe, and so I am familiar with the area that we've seen. However, this is the first, there are some changes this year. So, if I were to be presented with this sort of course map, profile, and make sure you do read the scale. Any hill can look very big. Keep in mind the scale. For those that may have done Boston, you can probably compare it to the Heartbreak Hills, and which is a good thing because I would say while challenging, this course is definitely challenging. If you're familiar with the Heartbreak Hills from the marathon course, these are definitely something that you will be able to manage very well. So, how would I go about developing a race plan? First thing, it's a 13-mile race. That's a long time. I would suggest not breaking things into mile-by-mile chunks because that's 13, 14 pieces, which can be a little daunting. Because you get to your third piece and oh, I've still got 10 more to go. I think a good idea is to break the race into slightly bigger chunks that you can focus on. So you get to one point and you may be aware of the miles that you're passing one by one, checking in with your splits to see how your pacing is going. But in terms of like mentally breaking the race up, I suggest slightly larger pieces. And for the way that this course runs, I would suggest the 4 following chunks. The first one is simply the first mile. So the first of the 4 pieces is the start to the 1 mile. And I think that's very important, so I give it a lot of attention. The second is from the mile mark to around 10K. The third chunk that I'll describe is the 10K to the 10-mile mark, and then finally the last 5K from 10 until the finish. So the first mile, very, very important to deal with this, fairly steep, as far as this course goes, decline. So the first thing I would do is consider this as part of your warm-up, because you could potentially run down this very fast. I think if you maybe cut back on your warm-up a little bit and tell yourself, I'm going to use that first mile to warm up, that's a good idea because you can run a pretty good split without putting out a lot of effort. If you were to run this hard, you could probably run an extra 30 seconds or so, but trust me, that 30 seconds won't be worth it in the end. You'll probably pay the price and may have slowed down a lot more than what the relatively little you have gained by going out too fast. Another thing is, it might be a little crowded, so that's another reason to consider the first mile as a warm-up. Try not to zigzag all across the road just to get around a few people. Things pretty much shake out as long as you're in the general right area, based on your projected pace. The crowds will work themselves out. By the end of that first mile, it starts to smooth out a little bit, and by now you're more warmed up, and you've hit a reasonable first mile split. And so then the next 5 miles or so, if you look at the course profile, it's fairly flat, some downhills, but I think this is a stretch where you can really start to get into your rhythm. If you follow the plan, you've done a number of tempo workouts or tempo runs. This is the point where you want to really recollect on how those went and feel how you felt during those tempo runs to find the proper effort, the right rhythm, and just really lock in. Because you can hit some fairly even paced miles, meaning your splits are not going to vary too much in this section because the course is fairly even, both in terms of ups and downs.